What if I told you that the snooze button on your alarm clock isn't just making you 10 minutes late for work, but is actually like actively destroying the most potent biological energy source your body produces all day?
Yeah, it really
I
is.
mean, we treat that button like a lifeline, right?
Yeah.
But biologically speaking, it is pretty much an act of self-sabotage.
Oh, absolutely. It creates this state of severe sleep inertia because when you hit snooze and drift back off, your brain essentially tries to start a brand new sleep cycle.
Right.
So then, when the alarm goes off again 9 minutes later, you are shocking your system right in the middle of deep, fragmented sleep. You aren't really buying rest. You're just guaranteeing grogginess.
Which perfectly brings us to the source material you, the listener, sent us for today's deep dive.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest, when I first opened the file and saw that you only sent us 2 sentences today, I was highly skeptical.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise.
Right. I mean, you usually send us these towering stacks of dense clinical research or, exhaustive white papers. But today, you gave us this tiny, evocative fragment from a piece titled The Vitality of the Dawn, which specifically centers on the benefits of waking up early.
That's the whole thing.
That's the entire canvas we were working with. 2 lines. My first thought was like, this isn't a deep dive. This is a fortune cookie.
Well, I mean, it certainly looks like one at first glance, but if we peel back the poetic phrasing and look at the actual physiological and psychological mechanisms behind those specific words, the author is actually describing a highly complex neurobiological state.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they just managed to do it with literature instead of a textbook. And for someone looking to optimize their time without, drowning in data, studying a tight conceptual framework like this is incredibly efficient.
Okay, let's unpack this, because for you listening right now, someone who hunts for those aha moments but actively avoids info overload, this text is the perfect catalyst to completely rethink your morning routine. We are going to look at the hard science behind the author's poetry.
I think we should start by evaluating the title itself, The Vitality of the Dawn.
Right.
The author makes a very deliberate linguistic choice here. They don't use a term like morning energy or alertness. They use vitality. And in a biological context, those concepts are miles apart.
Yeah, because alertness is really it's just the absence of sleep. Alertness is what you get when you chug a double espresso at 3 p.m., right? You aren't energized. Your brain just temporarily can't perceive how tired it actually is.
That is a crucial distinction because, caffeine works by blocking adenosine, the neurotransmitter that makes you feel sleepy. It just masks the exhaustion.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid.
Exactly. Vitality, on the other hand, implies the actual generation of a life force. It's an essential biological momentum. And what the author intuitively calls vitality here actually maps perfectly onto a measurable neurobiological event called the cortisol awakening response, or CAR.
Wait, really? Cortisol?
Yeah.
Isn't that the stress hormone? Because we're constantly reading about how we need to lower our cortisol to avoid burning out. Why would we want a massive spike of it first thing in the morning?
Well, it is the stress hormone, but context is everything here. Chronic elevated cortisol throughout the day from like a stressful job that is terrible for your body,
Sure.
but an acute massive spike of cortisol in the first 30 minutes after waking up, that is absolutely essential.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that spike is what signals your liver to release glucose into your bloodstream. It increases your blood pressure slightly, it clears out the brain fog, and it literally jumpstarts your cognitive engine.
So it's basically the ignition switch.
Exactly. That acute hormonal spike is the literal vitality the text is referring to.
Okay, I think a good analogy here is it's like a device being unplugged at a true 100% battery charge.
Right.
It's not just about functioning on low power mode, but operating at peak uncorrupted capacity right out of the gate. So the author is treating morning energy as a finite, perishable resource that your body manufactures overnight, rather than just like an attitude you try to adopt.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is that the author assigns that vitality not just to the act of waking up, but specifically to the environment.
Right.
The title is The Vitality of the Dawn. The author is suggesting that the dawn itself is a reservoir of this power.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because dawn is a highly specific astronomical window. It's not just morning.
Yeah.
Morning is a massive block of time, right? It includes the stress of a 9 a.m. commute and answering emails. Dawn is that liminal space. It is that exact fleeting transition where night turns into day. And biologically, our bodies actually react to that specific transition, don't they?
In a very literal way, yeah. We have these specific cells in our eyes called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but they contain a photopigment called melanopsin. Now, these cells are uniquely sensitive to the specific quality, angle, and intensity of light that occurs at dawn, that low solar angle transition from darkness to sunlight.
So they don't just react to any light. Like flipping on a lamp in your bedroom doesn't trigger them the same way?
Not at all. A lamp doesn't have the right properties.
Oh.
When that specific dawn light hits those receptors, it sends a direct signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Which is
That's the master clock in your brain. And that signal is what triggers the massive cortisol awakening response we just talked about.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see.
So when the text talks about the vitality of the dawn, it is describing a literal biological lock and key mechanism. The dawn provides the specific light frequency, and your brain unlocks the chemical vitality.
Let's try to visualize this. It actually makes me think of surfing.
Okay, I like that.
If you paddle out into the ocean during the transition of the tide, the environment is already generating a massive amount of kinetic energy. The wave does the heavy lifting for you. All you have to do is position yourself, stand up, and ride the momentum.
Yeah, that is a much more accurate way to look at it than viewing the morning as just a sheer battle of willpower.
Right. Because if you wait until noon to go surfing, the tide transition is over. The water is flat. You can still paddle around, but you have to generate every single ounce of momentum using your own exhausting physical effort. The wave is completely gone.
Building on that analogy, if you sleep through the dawn and wake up later, you miss that specific neurobiological trigger. You miss the wave.
Yeah.
You can still wake up, you can still drink coffee to artificially block your sleepiness, but you miss the effortless, environment-driven vitality that the text describes.
Okay, so that perfectly sets the stage. We've established that the vitality of the dawn is a real, measurable phenomenon driven by light and hormones. Now let's look at the second part of this tiny text.
Yeah.
The benefits of waking up early.
Yeah, and if we view those benefits through the lens of everything we just discussed, it actually forces a complete reframing of standard productivity advice.
Oh, absolutely. Because usually when we hear benefits of waking up early, the cultural narrative immediately pivots to hustle culture.
Right.
The internet is flooded with advice telling you to wake up at 4 a.m. so you can get a head start on the rat race, grind while your competitors are sleeping.
Which is so exhausting. That narrative treats time purely as a quantitative asset. It assumes the benefit of waking up early is simply having more hours in the day to do more things.
Just adding more to the to-do list.
Exactly. But the text doesn't frame it that way. By pairing benefits with vitality, the author is suggesting a qualitative advantage, not a quantitative one.
It's not about doing more things. It's about the state of your brain when you are doing them.
Precisely. Consider the concept of decision fatigue. Every choice you make throughout the day, from what to wear to navigating traffic to answering a really complex work email, it depletes your cognitive bandwidth. Your prefrontal cortex basically acts like a sponge that gets wrung out over the course of the day.
So by the time you hit 3 p.m., even small decisions feel overwhelming.
Exactly. But at dawn, that cognitive sponge is completely saturated. You have maximum bandwidth. When you wake up early, you are placing your most important, complex thoughts in the exact window where your brain has the highest neuroplasticity and the lowest decision fatigue.
Right.
The benefit isn't answering 50 emails before 6 a.m. The benefit is applying your biological peak to your most meaningful work before the world starts demanding your attention.
So you're operating in a proactive state rather than a reactive state.
Yes, exactly.
Because if you wake up right before you have to leave for work, your entire day starts in a defensive posture. You are instantly reacting to the alarm, reacting to the time, reacting to the traffic. But at dawn, the world is quiet. You dictate the terms.
And that quietness is a crucial component of the dawn's vitality. The absence of external stimuli allows for internal focus. You aren't just physically awake before other people. You are performing an action to intercept this peak physiological and psychological state.
Okay, and I have to stop you there and push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
I think a lot of people listening might be thinking about their weekends right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because we're talking about the benefits of waking up early and connecting it to this biological dawn wave. But is the benefit inherently in the physical act of waking up fully rested? Or is it strictly tied to the early part?
I see what you're
Let's say it's Saturday, you had a long week, you sleep in, you get a glorious, uninterrupted 9 hours of deep sleep, and you wake up at noon. You
Yeah.
feel fantastic. You're fully rested. Do you still get that vitality, or does this text imply that the dawn itself holds a completely unique benefit that you miss, even if your sleep duration is perfect?
That is the core conflict for anyone trying to fix their sleep schedule. To answer it, we really have to look at the interaction of two separate biological systems: sleep pressure and your circadian rhythm.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, sleep pressure is driven by that chemical we mentioned earlier, adenosine. It builds up while you are awake and clears out while you sleep. If you sleep for 9 hours and wake up at noon, you have successfully cleared your sleep pressure.
Right. The tank is empty.
Exactly. That is why you feel rested. But feeling rested is not the same as possessing vitality.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because while you cleared the adenosine, you completely misaligned with your circadian rhythm.
Mm.
The master clock in your brain expected that dawn light signal hours ago.
Oh,
By waking up at noon, you are asking your body to initiate its morning cortisol awakening response in the middle of the day when the environmental cues, like the angle of the sun, the temperature, they're telling your brain it should be well into its active phase.
so you're basically giving yourself jet lag in your own bedroom.
That is a very precise way to describe it, actually. You have rested muscles, but a completely confused endocrine system. The text explicitly links the benefits to waking up early underneath the umbrella of the dawn. The author doesn't promise benefits for just getting 8 hours of sleep.
Right. They highlight the necessary intersection of the action and the environment.
Yes.
So returning to the surfing analogy, waking up at noon after 9 hours of sleep is like showing up to the beach fully rested with a perfectly waxed surfboard. Your muscles are completely relaxed, but the tide already went out.
Exactly.
The ocean is flat. Your perfect preparation doesn't matter because you missed the environmental event.
The author is positing that the dawn is an astronomical and biological event. To reap the benefits, you have to be present for the event. The early hour provides the vitality, it is the reservoir, and the physical act of waking up early is the mechanism required to unlock and receive those benefits.
That reframes the difficulty of the morning entirely. When that alarm goes off and your brain is just screaming at you to hit the snooze button and fall back into sleep inertia, this text offers a really powerful counter-narrative.
It really does.
You aren't dragging yourself out of bed to suffer through the cold or to punish yourself to get ahead in the corporate grind. You are getting up to claim a finite resource.
You are aligning your internal biology with the external environment. When you intercept that dawn light, you synchronize your own awakening with the awakening of the world. You step into the day already possessing a chemical and psychological momentum that honestly just cannot be replicated at 10 a.m.
I really want you, the listener, to internalize this. Think about your own morning today. When your alarm went off, did you feel like you were actively claiming a peak biological state? Or did you feel like you were just barely surviving the transition out of bed?
Right.
Because what this text is offering is a completely different operating system for your morning.
It demands a major shift in perspective. The physical reality of the morning hasn't changed. Your bed is still warm, the floor is still cold. What changes is your understanding of the transaction taking place.
You are exchanging the warmth of the bed for the absolute highest point of cognitive and physiological capacity you will have all day. That's a massive trade-up.
It is. And by understanding the mechanics behind the poetry, that crave becomes a rational choice rather than just a test of sheer discipline.
So we've taken this incredibly brief text, literally just 2 lines, and found an entire neurobiological philosophy embedded inside it. We started by decoding the vitality of the dawn, moving past the poetic language to realize the author is describing a measurable physiological peak driven by the cortisol awakening response and our brain's reaction to specific low-angle sunlight.
And we established that the dawn is a unique liminal space that clears decision fatigue, offering a psychological state you simply cannot access later in the day.
Right. And we reframed the benefits of waking up early. We stripped away the toxic hustle culture narrative and replaced it with a biological reality. Waking up early isn't about working longer hours. It's about catching the wave. It's the key that unlocks the reservoir, the dawn's energy, before the demands of the day just drain your cognitive bandwidth.
It is a truly symbiotic relationship between human biology and astronomical timing. You must be present to claim it.
Which brings us back to why this is so deeply relevant to you. You sent us this fragment because you appreciate knowledge that fundamentally alters how you navigate your daily life.
Yeah.
By shifting your view of early rising from a painful chore to a daily opportunity to capture a finite, perishable resource, you completely change the trajectory of your entire day. Your focus, your mood, your resilience against stress, it all stems from the hormonal and psychological posture you take in those first few minutes.
If you start the day by actively claiming that vitality, rather than passively resisting the alarm and plunging yourself into sleep inertia, you really carry that momentum with you.
So what does this all mean? It means your alarm clock doesn't have to be an antagonist. It can actually be an invitation to intercept your own peak potential.
An invitation to the event of the dawn.
But as always, unpacking one fascinating idea usually leads us right to the doorstep of another. We've spent this entire deep dive marveling at the unique biological momentum that the text assigns to the morning. We've established that the dawn provides a measurable vitality to those who wake early to capture it.
Which is a very compelling, evidence-backed premise.
Right, but it makes me wonder, if the dawn holds this unique activating energy, what does that imply about the exact opposite end of the spectrum?
Oh, interesting.
What about the specific energy of the dusk? Does the vitality of the dawn just slowly deplete as the day goes on, burning out into exhaustion by sunset? Or, as the light shifts and triggers a completely different set of biological responses, does that energy transform into a different kind of power altogether? Is there a vitality of the dusk that we're completely ignoring?
That is a fascinating corollary. I mean, if the dawn is our biological ignition, is the dusk merely an engine shutting down, or is it an entirely different type of cognitive processing state?
Exactly. Something for you to ponder tonight as the sun goes down. Tomorrow morning when that alarm goes off and you're lying there in the dark, deciding whether to hit the snooze button, remember that you aren't just facing a loud machine. You are deciding whether or not to catch the wave. The choice of how you answer that invitation is entirely yours.